Hi guys, so we're going to carry on with the next lesson in the Get the Balance Right unit. Okay, so it's just another week of you doing this blended learning. After Easter we'll need to see what happens, okay, but we're just going to carry on with this for this final week. In terms of what we're looking at, it's just carrying on with the Eatwell guide, Get the Balance Right, and this time we are now looking at dairy and alternatives. Okay, so as before, you need to be able to name foods in this food group. You need to be able to name the main nutrient that you get from this food group and describe why the body needs to eat these foods. Okay, so you've maybe got an idea of that already, but we're going to go through each of those today. For a lesson starter, guys, okay, so again, if you're in class this time, you'll do all your tasks at the end of this PowerPoint and me reading through it. But your lesson starter, guys, it's going to be explain what the following nutrients are. So each of these, remember, is one of the nutrients we've already looked at. You need to explain what they are. So you need to think about why the body needs them and which foods that they come from. So we have kind of given you a bit of a clue here, guys. We've put them in color coded based on the sections of the Eatwell guide that you've already looked at. Okay, so I won't tell you much more than that, but you need to tell me about vitamins, carbohydrates, fibre and protein. So you can give me reasons that you need them, so why does the body need them, and give me example foods, okay, which section does it come from, and some example foods. Okay, so we've already covered our fruit and vegetable section. We've covered starchy carbohydrates, protein. We are now looking at dairy and alternatives. Okay, so it's this little blue section down here, folks. So dairy and alternatives. Now these are food and drinks, okay, so this one's a bit different. You do get drinks involved with this as well, whereas most of the stuff we've looked at before has been food. So the food and drinks that are made from milk and alternatives to dairy, okay? So we'll look at that in a bit more detail. You've got milk products and then you've got products that are alternatives to dairy products. There are many different varieties of dairy and dairy alternatives available, and we're going to look into that a little bit, okay? So we're going to start with a simple one. We're going to go with dairy first, okay? So what product varieties of these products are available? So dairy products are products that are made from any type of animal milk, okay? So that's the important bit, it's made from an animal's milk. So we'll only really look at cow's milk and goat's milk. You can go into it, guys, look it up if you want. You can get milk from so many other animals. I think I was looking into it a few weeks ago, and you get things like camel's milk. But the most common ones that you're going to find in this country, guys, are cow's milk and goat's milk, okay? So the types of products that we'll get from stuff like this, things like milk, cheese and yogurts. Okay, so we'll now sort of look into, there's one missing there that you've maybe not really thought about. One that's not on that list that automatically people will assume is a dairy product is butter. I'm going to tell you on the next slide why that's not included. So we're only including milk, cheese and yogurts. Okay, so some foods that are made from dairy products, that are made from milk, do not count as food from this section, and that is because they've either got too high a fat content or too high a sugar content for it to actually be beneficial in terms of dairy. Okay, so examples of that, we've got cream, butter, chocolate, ice cream. Every single one of those is made from milk, okay, usually cow's milk obviously, but because they're so high in fat and sugar, it's not worth it, okay? It doesn't help us with the dairy in terms of the balance between the good from the dairy and the bad from the fat or the sugar, okay? So just bear that in mind when you're looking at anything for dairy, guys. Milk, cheese, yogurts, all good, but don't include your butters, usually the one that people tend to put down, okay? So don't include that. So the next one was dairy alternatives. Okay, so dairy was made from animal milk, whereas dairy alternatives, these are used to imitate dairy products, but they're not made from milk. Okay, examples of these include soya milk, you've probably heard of, oat milk, almond milk. There are so many varieties of that nowadays, okay? Soya can also be used to make cheese and yogurts as well. Now you've also heard of, or most of you will have heard of lactose-free. Okay, that is a brand label. of products that is a dairy alternative. Now, lactose-free milk, cheese, yogurt, spreads, there's loads of different versions of this. This one, it's a bit of a funny one in that it's made from milk, but what they do is they put an enzyme in it to get rid of this lactose, okay? So we count it as a dairy alternative, guys, because it's something slightly different. It's not exactly milk dairy products. It's specially made to imitate milk products, but it's not the same as a usual milk product, okay? So dairy, directly made from milk, nothing special about it. Dairy alternatives, it's either not made from milk, so soya, oat, almond, whatever it is, or we've got the versions of these lactose-free milks, okay? So in terms of what we need, smaller portion again, so look at the size of the triangle compared to, for example, your fruit and vegetables, it's quite small. So a smaller portion of the diet should be made up of these foods. As before, guys, have a different variety of foods, don't just rely on your cheese or your milk. Try to choose low-fat versions of these foods, so milk can still be quite fattening, as can cheese obviously, so make sure that you're using low-fat versions. So you can get low-fat cheese. Mozzarella is also a lower fat cheese than cheddar. And then obviously we already know you get your different levels of fat in your milk, so we'll go through that in a second as well. Also, make sure you watch out for the high sugar content in yogurts, okay? So a lot of yogurts can have a lot of sugar to make them sweeter. If anybody's ever tried just plain yogurt, not vanilla flavoured or anything like that, just plain natural yogurt, it's actually not very sweet at all, okay? So just be careful of the sugar content, okay? So those are our sections, guys. We've already covered these three, and we've just finished looking at dairy and alternatives, okay? Task 2, again on your worksheet, you've got to name each of those foods, okay? So we've got our different types of milk here, all right? So you've got skim milk, semi-skimmed milk, and full fat or whole milk. Those are your different types. I need you to identify which one's which on here. And then you've got your other three slightly more challenging ingredients here, okay? So have a go at those, see what you manage to get, guys, okay? So why do we eat milk and dairy? So what is it we actually get from it? The body needs milk and dairy foods because they contain two things: protein, which we've already looked at. So protein we know is good for growth and repair of our cells in our body. And then the main thing that most people will recognise that you need from your dairy products is something called calcium. Now calcium is used to develop strong bones and teeth. Okay, so you need to make sure you get plenty of calcium, especially as you're growing up, so that you get good strong teeth and strong bones. Okay. Now, some of you will be sat there going, oh, I can't have lactose, I can't have milk. Okay, that is something that is becoming more and more prevalent. So what can you do if you can't have milk? Okay, so some people can't digest, it's actually a sugar technically that's in the milk products that they can't have, guys, and it's something called lactose. So a lot of you will have heard of that, okay? So it's actually technically a sugar within the milk, and it comes from your animal milk, like your cow's milk and your goat's milk. Anybody that can't digest that sugar, the terminology that we use for that condition is lactose intolerance, okay? So you're lactose intolerant. So that means that you can't actually digest that lactose, all right? And that's how you end up with the symptoms, which is usually things like bloatedness, wind, things like that, okay? So in the case that you're lactose intolerant, what can you do? We've already kind of looked at the dairy alternatives, guys. There are so many available now. Used to be maybe limited to one or two things, but there's huge ranges of lactose-free ingredients now. So that's where your dairy alternatives come in handy, all right, because they don't contain the lactose, whether that's something like the soya milk or whether that's using these products that have been specially created without the lactose. So there's a wee bit of extra information, guys, but these lactose-free products, they take the milk and they add the enzyme that the person with lactose intolerance actually doesn't have in their body. They add that to the milk before they process it so that it removes the lactose, okay? So it's made from a milk product, but they pre-digest, let's say, the lactose in there so that the person's body doesn't react to it, okay? So you're going to go on with your worksheet, guys, okay? So task 1, task 2, they're both on there, so you can have an attempt at that, and then there's a couple of additional questions. If they're available, guys, I've asked for copies of the Dairy and Alternatives crossword to be printed off as well, so if you've got access to those, great, have a wee go at that as well. If you're learning online, obviously it'll be in your files, so you can do that as well. If you're in class, guys, and they're not available, please have a go at it at home and just submit it through Teams, okay? And in terms of your extension task this week, guys, it's a basic macaroni cheese recipe that we're giving you. So you can make macaroni cheese for your family for dinner. It's quite a nice one to make, so we'll just have a quick look through this, okay? So as usual, your kitchen routine. You're looking at safely, hygienically preparing your recipe for the Dairy and Alternatives food group. We've already explained why the body needs these foods, okay? We need dairy for the calcium, for strong bones and teeth. You should be able to safely control the temperature of the hob. And your aim is to make a nice smooth cheesy sauce, okay? Not a lumpy horrible one. We want nice smooth cheese sauces. So in terms of your top tips, make sure you get your water on to boil at the start, guys. Remember, no point in putting your pasta in to find that you've not boiled the water. Remember your hob safety, I've put a slide in for that. Stir your pasta when you put it in the water to stop it sticking together, okay? So once it's in the water, give it a quick stir. Halfway through cooking, you can give it another quick stir. Don't stir it all the time, just give it a couple of stirs just to make sure it's not sticking together. You're going to grate cheese, so mind your fingers on the grater, okay? Remember using our techniques to prevent our knuckles getting caught. There's a stage, guys, where it says to make paste using the corn flour and a little bit of milk. Make sure you do that, guys. See if you don't and you just pour all the milk in straight away, you'll end up with lumps of corn flour, and one, that won't make your sauce thicken, and two, it will make your sauce lumpy, okay? So make sure you make that wee bit of a paste first, then you can add the rest of the milk gradually. Make sure you stir the sauce all the time, okay? So again, when you're heating it, make sure you're stirring it, otherwise it'll go lumpy. And when you drain your pasta, just be careful of the steam. So I've put another slide on just reminding you of how to safely drain your pasta, okay? So just a reminder, your hob safety, done this before, guys, don't need to go over it too much, so you can read that if you are going to be making the macaroni. Reminder, you're boiling versus simmering, so definitely boiling your pasta, it needs to keep moving, alright? It will definitely stick together if you have it just simmering. You shouldn't need to simmer this, guys, you might need to just turn it down a wee touch so it's not boiling too much and burning, but you shouldn't really be simmering this recipe at any point. Here's your safe draining of pasta. Okay, so turn the dial off, make sure you've got a clear sink, drain it into a colander, put it back on top of the pot so it doesn't drip, and use a pot stand. And then this bit here, guys, I've just made this video myself at home, not the best technical wise, but it'll do the job, and you can play pause it, go back over it and things, and it is on the YouTube channel as well, guys, if you wanted to look at it on there, just showing you how to make a quick cheese sauce, okay? So I'll play that for you just now. Okay, guys, so it's a nice quick video. You can go over that as many times as you want. Like I said, it's on the YouTube channel as well. A couple of the key points there, guys, okay? Like I said, you need to make that wee paste with the corn flour and the milk just to make sure that it doesn't go lumpy. Make sure it's all mixed before you start adding the rest of the milk and the butter. You need to make sure you melt it on the heat, and as soon as it's on the heat, that's where you need to start stirring it continuously. If you stop stirring it, guys, it's very likely to burn and go lumpy. You also saw a brief section there, guys, where I lifted the spoon up and used my finger just to wipe the back of the spoon. You won't need to do that, guys. It was just a demonstration to show you that the sauce should stick to the back of the spoon, okay? So please don't go doing that and burning your fingers. It was just to show you how thick the sauce should be, that it should stick to the back of the spoon, okay? When you put your cheese in, might have enough heat for it to melt itself. If you do need to put it back on the heat, just put it back on the heat gently, just until the cheese is melted, and then take it back off the heat, and then you just stir your pasta in at the end. Okay, so it's a really good, nice, simple recipe for you to do, folks. Like I said, you can use that video and watch that as many times as you like. So if you're in class, guys, you're going to work through the worksheet as you've done before. If you're working at home, again, just do that worksheet, submit it through Teams for me, please. And let me know if you have any questions or anything, just send me an email or put a wee post up on Teams. Okay, good luck with the questions, guys, and if you do choose to make a macaroni, guys, just send me a wee picture. It'd be lovely to see it.